Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, technology, innovation, evolution, and smoke out the ears frustration. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And today we've got a bit of a different conversation to dive into. We're talking technology. There are no two better men in America to talk technology than us, I'm sure. So looking forward to this as we get into what's going to wind up being not just a slight change, but what I think is starting to sound like a very significant change for college football whenever we get to the fall. Not only on a technology front, but also a gameplay front. And there's going to be a couple of different points where these two things kind of cross over. So we'll get into some of what's going to be changing. And Tech fans know this better than anyone. Joey McGuire and Texas Tech know this better than anyone, as we saw this take place somewhat in an altered variety within Tech's bowl game as far as in-helmet communication is concerned. But now we've also got a 2-minute warning to consider as well. Some things going to be a little bit more similar to what happens in the National Football League. Certainly want to hear from the audience. What are your thoughts on these things? But first, let's take a listen to Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire, who shared more than a few thoughts on these things, and most of those thoughts seemingly rooted in frustration. Here is Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire.
Man, I'm extremely frustrated with the helmet communication. I can send it to all y'all, or Dowdy can, my reply. I thought it was just ridiculous the way they decided to do it. I'm really frustrated because you had the perfect time in college football to get it right, and you chose not to. You chose to take the easy way out and decide, hey, let's just do it like the NFL. We don't play in the NFL. We don't huddle. Like, there's no point that you're going to not be able to, you're going to have to signal playing us. You're going to have to signal playing majority of college football. So you got one guy and you're talking to him and we're still having to signal. So the whole point to be able to do this was to do the communication right to where we didn't have to signal. And we had that opportunity. We had, if you think about it, the momentum was in that phase because you could have used the situation with Michigan and everything, and we chose not to. So my frustration, I've literally tried to call everybody in the committee. I've talked to different people. I've talked to Coach Bowles now with the AFCA about my frustration because I went into a bowl game and we had 3 guys on the headset, and guys, we did not signal one single time on the defensive side of the ball. So that eliminates that right there on one side of the ball. Now you get the opportunity to choose how you want to do it on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's the O-line, the quarterback, and maybe somebody else, or you could just have the quarterback. But, man, I just think they fumbled that.
Chris, I thought, going back to the bowl game, I kind of thought, okay, they make this change, they approve it. This is a smooth path to implementation. Well, I was wrong. Not smooth at all, and I'm sure Joey McGuire not the only one that holds that frustration.
I love opinionated and passionate Joey, man. That's my favorite. And you mentioned a second ago that they used a altered version of this, in the bowl game, which ironically enough, actually it was unaltered. Now what you're going to have now is very much altered, and that's his frustration. That's where, because what he's saying is that they didn't really limit how many players had the in-helmet communication in the bowl game. Tech was one of the Tech and Cal were one of the bowl games that it was kind of a trial. Like, hey, let's use this. Let's see what we can do. We have to have both teams agree to it. And there was a liability issue. It's like the helmet makers didn't want to sign off on, like, well, you're altering our helmet with whatever you're putting inside of it, so we're not going to be obligated if something were to happened to this piece of equipment. And then they got past that part and everybody was on the same page. And what Joey is saying is that because you had several people on each side of the ball that could hear what was being relayed to them, there's no need to have the big signs up there, and you're not, doing the whole, whatever you've got going with the hand signals and all that. And then obviously with potentially stealing those signs and all the controversy that caused by, shout out to Connor Stallions, national champion Connor Stallions. Yeah, you are a legend, sir. You've gotten rules changed, although I don't think they're going to alter your behavior, Mr. Stallions, because now you still have the need to signal. So I just think that's what, in the committee, everything that you read about this is like the committees, the powers that be were like, we don't want to go further than what the NFL is doing. They were just nervous about it. They didn't want to, go past how the NFL is doing it. And I think Joey's comment is, why not? We're not the NFL. This is different. We play football differently. The clock rules are different. The tempo is different. All the things. And so why would we not want to be different than the NFL? But I think because what you're going to have one player on each side of the ball. I think Joey's basically telling you right there, it's going to be Jacob Rodriguez on defense or his backup, Bryce Ramirez, and then it'll be Baron Morton or Cam Brown on offense. And, it makes me wonder, what he's talking about is you can only have one guy with that helmet on the field at the same time. So if you're running a package where Bryce and Jacob are on the field at the same time, or you're running a goal line package or a trick play or whatever, where Barron and Cam Brown are on the field at the same time, they're going to have to use, a separate helmet than they normally would. Okay. And then communication cuts off with 15 seconds left on the play clock. So does that mean you just get tempo going and you'll basically want to snap it at 15 seconds so you can talk up until the point where it doesn't cut off and not allow the defense to adjust? I mean, there's all kinds of gamesmanship here, but yeah, you could certainly sense the old head coach's frustration there, because they had and everybody seemingly liked this. There was not really many complaint at all a bowl game time with the folks that utilize this. The other thing I think is fascinating here is going forward. If I want to use this in helmet, okay, then I can use it. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. In the bowl game, it's like both teams had to agree that this is the way they were going to roll for everybody to go, okay, we're going to do this. Now, if you want to use it, great. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. And so I think that's a bit different too. And there were some other changes that we'll get into as well here.
Yeah, it just seems like we're going to be taking up residence in the land of unintended consequences, because there's a whole lot of this that I really didn't even consider until you heard Coach McGuire speaking on it. I just kind of thought, okay, simple process. Now you got a guy who can communicate with the sideline, or guys who can communicate with the sideline. But then let's actually take another listen to Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire, because then, as you're describing there, you get into this burden on the officials, burden on the equipment guys. We need double helmets for certain guys. Okay, wait, that guy's got a green dot, bring him back, or we're going to get penalized 10 or 15 yards. I mean, it's going to be wild to see some of this actually play out. Here again is Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire describing some of the on-the-ground reality that I guess we'll see play out in the fall. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. And you can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs, slam dunks, and all in between, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So what's the holdup? Get in the mix now on all the action by visiting FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Here again is Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire describing some of the on the ground reality that I guess we'll see play out in the fall.
The other thing we did, we just put more stuff on the officials, because now we have to go, and I don't think this is, I could be totally wrong, I don't think they do this in the NFL, but think about this. Jacob Rodriguez has the green dot on, okay? Now we're going to put Bryce Ramirez in, so Jacob's got to come off, or Bryce has got to wear a different helmet if he's going to be the green dot guy. Like, you can only have one on there. Well, who's officiating that? The officials, and then it's a penalty. So if you end up with 2 guys on the field with 2 green dots, it's a penalty. So now I've got to have my equipment guys holding extra helmets for the green dot guys. I mean, come on. Like, literally, you had the simplest way to fix all of this, and you was like, hey, let's just put more on the officials.
Which historically has turned out very well, Chris, when we put more on the officials, right?
I mean, to quote a very wise, passionate man, I mean, come on. I mean, it's a valid point. It's a lot to keep up with. I don't know exactly, like Zane Perry and Cayman Ansel, who handle the equipment for Texas Tech football. I don't know what their plan will be on some of these things. I don't know how many like green dotted helmets you will be, prepared for. I would guess every quarterback is going to need one. And then you're going to need, some of these guys are going to need like a second helmet, like a Cam Brown. I just can't imagine there's not a play in the playbook where Cam Brown and Baron Morton are not on the field at the same time, whether it be a 2-point conversion or some sort of gimmicky package or whatever in the around the goal line or whatever, and so that, and I can also imagine that there's not a scenario to where Jacob Rodriguez and Bryce Ramirez are not on the field at the same time. Injuries happen and you get, there's different player packages and all these things. So anyway, I think that is certainly worth noting. A couple of other things is that they're going to, and I'm curious because you're going to use outside vendors for a lot of this stuff. You're going to have, the conference is going to provide the cutoff guy. So there's going to be somebody, I guess, up in a booth they'll be in charge of like cutting off communication within 15 seconds of the play clock and all that. So that's an expense, I guess, that the conference will, kind of like the replay official. Hopefully the cutoff guy is a bit better at their job than their most replay officials are.
That's just job creation, Chris. It sounds like we found another job for somebody. And what a job. I mean, that dude has to be pulling his hair out by the end of the night. You're just counting 15 seconds over and over and over through, I don't know, 150, 180, 200 plays for both teams. That guy's going to go crazy by the end of the week.
They will use they're going to use an outside vendor like DV Sport, I think maybe is who most will use, but like 18 tablets provided to each team. And you can utilize those in your coaching booth where your assistants are and during a game, on the sideline and in the locker room. So I don't know. And how do you know there's not 19? I don't know how that all works or who gets to access it and all those things. I was told that a lot of the tablet usage, like the NFL, this is what is tricky about this. It's like, we didn't want to push past what the NFL is doing in one thing. However, we're going to in another area, and this is it.
Right.
In the NFL, they just use still images. And like on those tablets, it's like screenshots. There is no video or all that. Well, they're going to allow you to use video, and they're actually going to send these tablets are going to basically be gimmicked up and to where there's no outside communication to it. But I think that the league will send replays and certain replays or whatever to these, and so you can review it. The league will decide what goes, what plays are sent to teams. And so my question was, when I first heard this, was like, so if they blow a pass interference call or a holding penalty, are you for sure going to get that replay? I mean, or will the league purposely go, let's don't send that one, guys. Let's not. I mean, those were the questions I was asking. Again, somebody is I don't know if on site, but somebody's in charge of this. but this is outside of what the NFL does. And so, because I thought it was pretty fascinating this year, Grant McCaslin had used this tablet technology and live video and all that where he previously coached. And so they were kind of a trial conference and using it. Well, now everybody can, and the Big 12 was certainly all in on this year. Well, he used that quite a bit during the game. I mean, there were times where he would turn around and he was dealing with a stud of a dude named Chris Nottingham, who was the video coordinator, who was like sitting very close to me in some settings, and he's watching, like a replay or a foul call or whatever, and it wasn't altered as far as like what Grant could see during a game. And I think in football, though, it's going to be like the selection of like what the league chooses to send you. It's not a full game video. In other words, it's like, I guess each play, or I don't know, in a certain camera angles and all that stuff. So because Grant would turn around and be like, "Hey man, you blew that call. I just watched it. Like you blew it, and or hey, use it as a coaching point. Hey, this is what they're doing when he comes, sets the screen. This is where you need to go, not here, or whatever it may be." And I was pretty fascinated. He was very comfortable in using it. So I don't know how the football part of it will go, but I think that's worth mentioning. And then we have the old 2-minute warning that we're going to get in the second and fourth quarter.
Yeah, and it sounded like Coach McGuire was a little more favorable on the 2-minute warning and some of how that might impact gameplay. As a fan, I've been a little bit confused as to the timeline of, hey, we're going to stopping the clock after every first down. We're going to keep college football running now to a degree, and then they give us this big set of breaks known as a 2-minute warning. But I think the way that Coach McGuire described it, and I've heard some others describe it, made a little more sense as far as maybe something that's kind of lost on a lot of fans. I know in plenty of college football Saturday settings, it's been lost on me, but the way in which, a game winds up or a half winds up when there are TV timeouts to get in or to still fit in. And I guess maybe this will impact that a little more favorably.
Yes. So I think the way that most producers handle, like there's certain TV timeouts. It's like the orange glove guy. Right. It runs out there and it's like they've got the orange glove on or whatever, and they're out there. Now they hold a clock up, at least at Jones AT&T. It's a countdown so everybody can kind of see. There's certain TV timeouts you have to get in per half. This is what the networks have paid for. And I think that at times you squeeze in, depending on how a game flows, you squeeze in more of them early on or when somebody scores, and you just feel like, okay, for a 10 or 15 minute real-time period, you're just sitting there and we've played like 3 plays. It's very frustrating. There's no flow and all those things. And you're just like, okay, huddle up. And it's like, okay, we've already talked about this 6 times. And now there's I think the way I saw it framed is that there's a bigger runway for producers now to not have to squeeze those timeouts in, because they know they're going to get the 2-minute warning. And so it should create for better flow. Okay. So there's that part. What I'm fascinated about is that from if I'm Joey or any coach out there, I can be a little looser and maybe burn a timeout at some point in a half, whereas before I'm holding on to them for dear life. Maybe I have a little more leeway on, man, we don't have the right personnel group in, or the play clock is running down. I don't want to eat the 5-yard penalty. Maybe now you have a little bit more flexibility in burning one because you have a built-in timeout in each half. So there's that thought process too. But I do think what you're getting into, and I think these are actually intended consequences. I think it'll make for end of games to be a bit more exciting and give somebody a bit more hope, because I think it's going to be easier in some ways to make a comeback. It's also going to be more difficult in some ways to milk a lead and get to the end, because you mentioned that about the clock and first downs and all that stuff. Well, within 2 minutes, the clock will stop on first downs, whereas the rest of the game, it's still rolling.
Yeah.
But within 2 minutes, and this is also like a 2-minute warning, it's like, okay, hey, everybody, we're going to now go into the under 2 minute set of rules. And that's part of it is like on first downs, the clock will stop. And again, so it sets up for the team that is behind or the team that is trying to score and all those things, and which makes for, maybe a bit more excitement. So I think there's all kinds of reasons, but to alter this. But anyway, it's pretty fascinating. And I will fully admit, I've known this my whole life, and I guess blanking when somebody first asked me about this, I forgot that there's a 2-minute warning at the end of the first half in the NFL. I just, you just don't think about it. It's just so ingrained and so, I guess, normal that, but they did this during the red and black game on Saturday. You get to the end of the first half and it's like 2 minutes on the clock and it's like everybody stopped and huddled up, and I was like, okay, we're practicing this, so anyway, so there you go.
I'm just anticipating, and hopefully it's not for the team that we root for. Our guys will all have this in check in front of mine, but I am anticipating, to use an industry term, chickens with heads cut off in some situations with everything we've just discussed. Not just the 2-minute warning, but the helmet communication, the 2-minute warning, the final 2-minute rules. Okay, we're back to first downs, stopping a clock, things like that. I mean, this is going to be a real challenge for a coaching staff and for these athletes to really be cognizant of these things. And, I certainly wouldn't be one to make excuses or say, oh, don't put too much on the delicate student athlete or anything like that. But for a period of time, whether that's just 1 year or it bleeds into a few years, this is going to be a hell of an adjustment and acclimation period, right? I mean, I think we're going to see some, again, hopefully not for the guys that we're covering and rooting for, but we're going to see some circus-like moments for some teams across the nation. I think just about every Saturday, at least for a little while.
And I'll be interested to see if there's ever that they have said, like on the in-helmet communication, that if somebody's stream or communication goes down, then they shut them all off. Like, so neither team gets to use it. So you do have to have a level of, backup, being able to signal and all that stuff. So you're not going to get away from the way football has been done for the last many, many years on signaling in plays or wristbands or whatever the case may be. I also think that you need to be prepared for this this pose by your quarterback and the green dot guy on defense a lot.
Yeah, the earmuffs.
Because I think that what they'll tell you, I think Baron Morton said this prior to the bowl game, as he had already practiced with it a bit. It's not like HD sound, or it's not like crystal clear. It's like you're in, when you pull up to a drive-through window and you can hear them, but it's not just the best quality sound. It's not like you're driving around in your car and you're listening to Cowan and Level on Locked On Texas Tech, and it's just, man, you're just like, it's crisp, right. It's clean. They're knowledgeable or idiots, depending on your opinion there. But it's somewhat muffled, and so I think in these noisy stadiums, that's why you see those NFL quarterbacks or whatever. It's like, trying to just get as much of that sound in as you can. So there'll be as much time spent on strategy and managing the game from these kinds of standpoints this offseason as much as anything else. How do we do this? Let's talk to this person. What is your advice? I'm sure, if I'm Joey, I'm calling like Matt Rule. Like, hey, you were in the NFL for all those years as a head coach. Like, take me through it. Like, what am I missing here? You talk to as many people as you can to figure out how good you can possibly be and how, well-oiled your machine and how you can best utilize your pieces. There's a lot going on in a football game, man. It's like you have certain people, their jobs are different throughout the year, but during games, man, it's like, okay, your sole responsibility is to manage the analytic book, or the in-helmet thing. I mean, whatever. There's a lot of delegation going on a Saturday afternoon, and even more so now.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting, and I can only imagine hearing that come across the helmet. All right, Slide 2, Spider Z, stick banana. I'd like a small seasoned curly. Small seasoned curly. Okay, like I said, hopefully
Feels like an Arby's night.
hopefully it's not the guys in red and black who are bewildered by these things, and it's the guys on the eastern sideline at the Jones that are bewildered by some of this. Somebody's going to be, though. And it should be entertaining, at least to a degree, if it's not your team, to watch that play out. Okay, let's switch footing before we get out of here, Chris. First, today's episode brought to you by Monopoly Go. And we've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime of the big game, and the scoreboard's not looking too good. You're feeling low. You're not sure you or your team are going to be able to pull out a win. And that's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. And you can do just that with the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies and tell them all about it whenever you're kicking their butts. You can also play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with the wrecking ball, or charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go today for free in the App Store or on Google Play. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events, and with Gametime, you never will, because it's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you're going to find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it begins if you get a little distracted at the tailgate. That means Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Also, the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets. Not just fast, however, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. I got to get to this hoops conversation because this was, I think, another one of those anticipated or expected announcements or signals that we're going to come across. But if you haven't seen it this week, just yesterday, Chance McMillan also declared he would like to run it back in the aforementioned red and black. And Chance McMillan was obviously a key player for Texas Tech. If you want to call him a great surprise or whatever, that's fine as well. I don't know what I anticipated as far as his impact, but I think he certainly exceeded that for myself and probably a lot of other Texas Tech basketball fans. So was thrilled to finally officially hear that Chance McMillan was going to be a Red Raider again.
Yeah, and we assumed this, but you just ultimately never know. And the funny thing is, there's still no guarantees. He could,
True.
I don't know when the basketball portal closes for basketball, but we've seen that before out there in the ether that hey man, I'm coming back. After thinking about it a little, we've seen. I don't think that's what will happen here, but you just never know. But it's. He has another year of eligibility. I think that they took him knowing that they would get more than 1 year from him, and this is the way it worked. He's really your only the interesting thing is he's really your only pure guard on your team. Yes, you've added Kevin Overton, who's a big guard and all that, but Chance is really the only guard you have on your team right now. And even then he's not like a point guard per se. This is well worth investing in here because he's just a big-time athlete, three-point shooter. I don't know what his role will be next year, if it's off the bench or if it's starter or whatever, but he's certainly a big part of what you wanted to do, and he showed that he can play at this level, at the Big 12 level, and I think that he was as advertised. I think that he was kind of you had talked about this. There was a time early on in the season where he kind of struggled shooting a little bit. I think compared to how he normally had been, but once he hit his groove, because there was a couple of games where, what did he drop, like 6 threes, 7 threes, maybe even an 8-3 game. One in Norman, I know for sure, where he kind of just took over. It was like he's just talking about a heat check. So anyway, really glad that he's back. He seems like a wonderful kid. Doesn't say a whole lot, and just kind of does his thing. No drama. Kind of was a perfect. Him and Darian are kind of perfect, like faces of the program for the way I think that the team was last year. Good at both ends of the floor, and no drama, and just quality players and very consistent players.
Well-rounded and tough. I think early on in the season, when you hear about him and his marksmanship qualities, not to stereotype any marksman out there, but sometimes they're not the guys that are cleaning the glass or are playing defense or are rocking the rim on occasion. But he checked all those boxes. And we talked about several times him playing a little bit bigger than maybe he is, certainly in the rebounding department. He was always seemingly making an impact when maybe you didn't quite anticipate that. So, yeah, I agree with what you just said there at the very end to wrap it up. He is one of those guys like Darian Williams and some others we've mentioned that you feel like does represent the culture that Grant McCasland wants to establish and sustain, and will be one of those, or continue to be one of those, foundational pieces for Texas Tech moving forward. Is it quiet, a little too quiet on the Texas Tech basketball portal front, or is patience just a virtue that I'm lacking when I'm wanting to hear a lot of noise, Chris?
Yeah, and I get that. I think a lot of people are just kind of, and what causes this is the noise around you. Yeah. So when Baylor gets a big fancy, addition or a couple, and you start to see, other people having fun and all that, and you're like, well, I want to have fun. I mean, I'd like to, and you have spots to fill. You have meaningful spots to fill. But yeah, I think Coach McCasland's staff are either currently out on the road or going today, and just, this, but again, I have to keep reminding everybody it's June or July before it was all put to bed last year. And those were pieces that ultimately were going to start for you and lead for you and everything. So it just, you want the right fit. And you've got fit, you've got scheme, you've got eligibility, like as far as how many years, you've got what I prefer on playmaker or defender or both. You've got NIL. There's all kinds of factors that go into this, and it's prior relationships and all that stuff. So I think you have to understand, that this takes a bit to make sure that you get it right, because you can't screw it up.
Gotcha. Yeah, no doubt. And I'm sure that we'll be able to have some fun ourselves here in some days and weeks to come very soon. All right, Chris, great stuff as always, man. I appreciate the insight, appreciate the time, and we'll be back on the other side to do it again. See you then.
Looking forward to it. Appreciate it. Keep hope alive, everybody.
And get subscribed if you're not already on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Appreciate you all being out there, and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.